So as Venus mentioned, we kicked off First Forward just last year in our last cycle and had a great opportunity to bring in 80 institutions into our first cohort. Something to note up front is that First Forward engagement is a lifetime engagement. It's not a one-year program. As long as your institution is still actively engaged in first generation efforts, you will continue to be a part of the First Gen community, the First Forward community, and we want you to be actively engaged. There are some opportunities the longer you've been in the program to join some leadership within First Forward, and I'll talk about that as we move forward a little bit today. We're also, as we continue on today, I'm going to walk you through some of the benefits. I'm going to walk you through some of the requirements of participation, and toward the end, we're also going to give you some tips on what we look for in an application, how many institutions we typically would select, just so you have all of that insider knowledge as we're moving forward. So no worries there. Also, and I had just put this in the chat, just about everything that you're seeing in the presentation today is available on the First Forward website. So if you want to share this with colleagues or dig back in later, you'll have access there, as well as to the recordings and then the presentation materials and all as well too. So as Dina mentioned, First Forward is a lot about building community, and a lot of it is also about us providing you with an opportunity to elevate your first generation efforts in a way that's a benefit to your institution. So by being selected as a First Forward institution, you will then receive public identification as a First Forward institution. The really cool logos and graphics that you see related to First Forward, you receive a packet of materials that include those logos. We want you to put those on your website. We want you to use those across your institution in your print materials. We even provide you with a template for a campus press release. You may have seen some of those floating around as we made our release of our first 80 institutions last year. And we want you to elevate these conversations up to your communications teams, your PR offices. We want, when a student visits your website, to see that First Forward logo and think to themselves, oh, this institution must really care about first gen students. This is a place I should apply. This is a place I could get more engaged. So we really want this to be a benefit to you all as well. Once you're selected as a First Forward institution, you also receive a notification letter from Dr. Kevin Kruger, the president of NASPA, that goes to your institutional leadership announcing your designation. You may have seen, if you're a social media user like we all are at the center, you may have seen some institution presidents throwing some information out, some tweets out, recognizing newly selected First Forward institutions and how proud they were of the work that was happening. So make sure that you get that as well. Of course, as a First Forward institution, you get a bit of deeper engagement into the NASPA network. We have over 16,000 members across our network, and so being engaged with First Forward is really a first line toward knowing about new things that are going on within the association, opportunities to engage at conferences, to get involved in leadership, and things of that sort. One of the most important benefits of participation with First Forward is the community that you get to build. We have what we call a broad cohort and then also regional communities of peer institutions. And we're going to dig into the regional communities in just a couple of minutes. What we love about First Forward is that we take every chance we can to get all of the institutions together, to do that in person, but then also virtually, but then also just to make sure that you all have connections to each other. You might be thinking about building a new program or service. You might be troubleshooting a challenge, and you might dig through that list and think, where are a couple of schools I could call? Who could I do some site visits with? Who could I get to know a little more? Whose brain could I pick? And it gives you a ready line of defense to be able to navigate that with your peers and new colleagues. We also really love some of the pieces that have been built into First Forward because it allows for a lot of resource sharing. People are really wonderful about saying, here's how we built a program. Here are our resources we're sharing with our students. Here's our new swag that we developed for First Generation Celebration Day, which if you're not already involved, First Generation Celebration Day this Friday, November 8th. Really excited to see all the wonderful work that's happening across the country. I'm going to circle back to regional communities in just a couple of minutes because that's something really important as a part of the First Forward opportunity. You will have an opportunity to engage in professional development that strengthens your campus knowledge base. This is something that the center provides for you as a part of First Forward. We also work with you to help do an annual report. And don't get worried on us already. It's pretty simple. It's something that we work with you on during your entire first year as a First Forward institution, and then give you the tools to use beyond. Really, what we want to do is to help you set goals for the next year, 2 years, 5 years at your institution specific to first generation efforts, and then we want to help you benchmark those. And really, it's not about the center knowing what you're doing. The real benefit there is we help you develop these annual reports to use with your senior leadership, to say, you know, we set these goals a year ago as a part of First Forward, and here's where we've had some successes, but here's where we're really struggling. And we need the resources, we need additional information, we need staffing. Here are the things that we need to really help us elevate our opportunities. And so we can certainly share more with you about that. Every First Forward institution has an opportunity to contribute a featured blog on the center's website. We then provide you with a link to that blog for you to elevate to your institutional PR communications offices to get into your social media. And then we also do some publicity around that for you as well. You, of course, get first look access to new reports, advanced knowledge that the center is releasing. And then, as I mentioned earlier, after you have been engaged with First Forward for 2 years, you have an opportunity to advance to advisory status. And a little later in our time together today, I'll share a little bit more about what advisory status means. Dean, I think we can circle back to the regional community conversation a little bit. So with 80 institutions in our first cohort, it was a lot to manage. And really, we wanted to find opportunities for people to engage in smaller networks as well. So currently, we have 9 regional communities. They are broken down across the United States, and we'll show you a couple of examples of those in just a moment. These institutions gather monthly virtually through a virtual phone call. We drive a bit of the conversation for those calls, but the institutions really drive what's of interest to them. Sometimes it's talking about celebration day planning. Sometimes it's troubleshooting an issue. One of the things we like about the regional communities being broken up geographically is, one, it really helps with time zones and getting on schedules and making things consistent. But many of these institutions are also navigating the same political climates, they're navigating funding issues or state issues, so sometimes that helps in some of the conversation. But many of these institutions also have chosen to get together. They're doing drive-ins, they're doing site visits, they're getting together. And so you'll see here the Mid-Atlantic Regional Community. You'll note that next to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, there's a small asterisk. We also have 9 advisory institutions currently leading our regional communities. These institutions help make sure the calls happen every month. They answer questions. These are institutions who have a long history with first generation efforts, do really outstanding work in this space, and we're ready to be elevated as we brought on this new program. Dina, if you'd like to show, this is an example of our Mid-Atlantic Regional Community. You'll see that we have a Great Lakes Regional Community that's led by our friends over at North Central College, just outside of Chicago. We also have an example here of one of our California school groups. Now, one thing I want to be really clear about, you can communicate with anyone in the First Forward community anytime you want. We just use these regional communities as smaller engagement opportunities. We know that some of our institutions in the regional communities will reach out to other like institutions across the country. Sometimes our community colleges will talk. Sometimes our small privates will get together and have conversations. But really, it offers you an opportunity to dig in and have important conversations with your colleagues across the country. Another thing that we are hoping to see grow in our regional communities are collaborative presentations for conferences, potentially some resource development. Sometimes there's been some conversation about some book chapters coming out of the communities as we continue to grow the evidence base and the research knowledge around first generation efforts. So exciting work that's happening within the regional communities and something that I hope you all will be able to engage with. As new members of the First Forward community, you would already have access to all of these current First Forward institutions as well. And they are a fun group, and they are eager to bring on more institutions and share knowledge and learn from you all as well.